Hello and welcome to One on One. I'm Vernon Ramesar, and I'm very pleased to say my guest today is Wilfred de Gannes, Chairman and CEO of the Shipbuilding and Repair Development Company of Trinidad and Tobago Limited. Mr. de Gannes, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Vernon.
You're in a sort of a fascinating area of development for this country, given that we're going through somewhat difficult times for the next little while, it seems, with energy prices being down. There's a lot more talk about diversifying the economy. Explain to us how the T&T Shipbuilding and Repair cluster came into being, and the commercial arm, which is what you're dealing with, and how it's contributing to national development.
Well, the Trinidad and Tobago Shipbuilding and Repair Cluster was established way back in 2007 by the now Prime Minister, who was the Minister of Trade and Industry at the time. The idea was to diversify the country away from the oil and gas sectors. As you're quite aware, just today, the price of West Texas Intermediate crude was $35.
I think gas was down to 188 or something like that, which is worrisome.
It is, simply because it's a demand-supply equation, The United States Congress has removed in the process of removing the export ban on crude.
And the U.S. is already the world's largest producer now because of fracking, etc.
Already the United States exports refined petroleum products. So this is a new step. The need to diversify, has been long in coming. It takes time, for it to
I guess what happens is our economy basically rests on the sole pillar, almost, of energy.
Yes.
And even our other plans were for downstream industries. But basically shipbuilding and repair is completely independent of energy to a large extent, isn't it?
Yes and no. We have some 56 active stakeholders within our cluster, and many of them are involved in the energy sector. So what we have found is that the experience and the skill sets that are learned by the employees are easily transferred into the shipbuilding and repair segment, which we operate in.
So it actually would be a potential opportunity for employment for people who may be experiencing the fallout of the current low energy prices.
Yes, correct.
To some extent.
Because the shipbuilding and repair, we have high standards similar to what exists in the energy sector in terms of classification societies and certifications that have to be met. And these companies that are in existence in the energy sector, as I said, their skill sets are easily transferred to our industry.
No, I know for a long time we were talking about the yachting industry. This is sort of independent from that to some extent, isn't it?
Yes. When we talk about yachts, we really mean vessels that are no larger than, say, 24 meters in length.
And non-commercial, usually.
And non-commercial, yes. Save and except if it's what we call a mega yacht.
Or if they're involved in trade that isn't quite legal, but that's a whole other section of discussion as well. So you're talking about things larger than that.
Correct.
With commercial
a ship is
potential.
Is described as a vessel that is 24 meters and above. So we could have large ships up to, say, Panamax size, even beyond that. Post-Panamax is one of the larger sizes, and even ultra-large crude carriers that go up to 400,000 deadweight tons.
That would be ambitious on our part, wouldn't it?
Yes. We have to start at a reasonable level, quite naturally. So in Brea, the government has agreed to continue the development of a shipyard industry, which our company has proposed since way back in 2010. This was a direct result of the community saying we don't want any smelter sort of operation, which would have somehow adversely affected the community and environment. And one of the good things about it is we said to them, let's go and find out if a shipyard would be a good alternative by way of environmental and sustainable type industry as a replacement.
And employment potential as well, I guess.
Yes, because in southwestern Trinidad, there are quite a bit of good welders from that area, and these welders were formerly employed in the petrochemical plants that were built in the Point Lisa industrial estate. So all the weld techniques that have been learned over the decades here in Trinidad are, as I said, easily transferred to the shipbuilding and ship repair industry.
When you think of the history of Trinidad and Tobago and commerce, you don't really think of shipbuilding as being one of the things we were outstanding in our history. Have we ever had a strong shipbuilding tradition?
Well, no, not really, but we more focus on ship repairs. This is normally the case in most countries in the maritime sector. For example, in Singapore, Their ship repair sector contributes some $15 billion.
15 billion?
Yes.
And that's just repairs?
Repairs, fuel bunkering, and ship and rig repairs.
Okay, given that you guys have been around since 2007, how far have you progressed in terms of the industry of shipbuilding? And I guess repairs would also be an important part of your business as well.
Well, one of the things we have also saw it fit to do is do quite a bit of industry marketing, both locally and internationally. So, for example, we write articles that are published in well-known publications like Linkage, and also in the Daily Guardians. We have our newsletters we publish every month.
So you're trying to keep people aware of what is going on in Trinidad and keeping our profile up.
Yes, that's important because, you know, Trinidad, they have 4 Trinidadads in the world, you know. The United States is a Trinidad, in Jamaica here there's one, in Venezuela.
And Cuba there's one as well.
And Cuba there's one. So we have to differentiate from that. So that's why we market this whole thing, Trinidad and Tobago, which we feel is the correct approach to do, you know. So out of all this adverts and PR we do, we get a lot of inquiries from time to time. And since 2009, we got some 2.7 billion TT dollars in inquiries. So when we get these inquiries, our company, the development company, passes it on to our 56 stakeholders.
So you're really like the umbrella, the commercial umbrella body that represents this cluster of 56 stakeholders.
Yes, correct. We also actively take part in trade shows. At the time, local trade shows such as the Trade and Investment Convention, which is carded to be held mid-next year in Trinidad. We even had like ship in water displays at the Hyatt Regency when they had the trade show in Port of Spain at the time, you know. So yes, we are the umbrella body. In fact, in terms of shipbuilding, we participated in 2009 in our international tender for a design and build contract for 2 Harbour tugboats. This was for a client and National Energy Corporation at for the same Brea site where the new shipyard is being proposed.
Now, when it comes, I guess you're looking at internal business, certainly, but you're also, as you mentioned, in these international publications, looking to bring in business from overseas to Trinidad and Tobago. What would be, you know, in marketing they talk about the unique selling proposition. What are the advantages that Trinidad and Tobago would have in terms of shipbuilding and repair?
Well, we have some 31,000 ships that transit within 25 nautical miles from our coastline. You know, if you go to Chaguaramas, for example, you'd see quite a bit of ship activity, ships in the harbour, ships alongside the shore. You know, for example, the popular liming spot, Pier 1, if you go there today, you know, you'd see 4 large offshore supply vessels, berth, you know. Trinidad offers safe anchorage. The Gulf of Paria is one of the largest natural deep water harbours, and we have to utilize that to our competitive advantage. We don't have hurricanes in this part of the region, thank God, you know, and this also...
So a lot of people move their ships into Trinidad and Tobago waters when it's hurricane season.
That's right, lower insurance costs, that's what it translates to.
And of course we have Chaguaramas, which is rather a miraculous deep harbour as well, isn't it?
Yes,
it's a long maritime history.
Yes, Chaguaramas at the Caribbean dockyard facility has been repairing ships for over 100 years now.
Over 100 years?
Over 100 years, correct. You know, and it's all run by locals now. And they do a very prosperous business. In fact, the 3 leading shipyards in Trinidad, they have a repair back order book of some 6 to 7 months of work into 2016.
Also, you have more work than you can handle, basically, when it comes to repairs.
That's correct. So that's why it's important for us as a country to expand our existing ship repair capacity as well as to build new shipyards, as the case of the Brea project proposal.
People may not think that shipbuilding is a particularly important area of economic activity, but they may not realize that a lot of the major cities around the world were developed around shipbuilding. It provided the largest employment for a lot of British cities, for example, and in Holland as well. It's an important business. Yes,
and Scandinavia as well, you know, that's true and correct. Norway, Sweden, and those countries, you know, they build their industrial base from the maritime and shipbuilding, ship repair industry.
It's a fairly stable industry as well, isn't it? Because when you think about it, all these companies manufacturing things and all these countries wanting to get those things, it has to be transported.
Yes, 90% of the world's cargoes are transported on ships simply because it's a very cost-effective mean to do same, you know. As I said, we have so many ships that transverse Trinidad and Tobago.
31,000, I think you said.
Yes,
which is a remarkable
and
number.
then with the expansion of the Panama Canal, which is going to be completed early next year, that amount of throughput that will be passing through the expanded third lock would be doubled as anticipated. So we sit pretty close to where all the activity is in this part of the hemisphere.
So how much have we invested in shipbuilding and repair infrastructure in Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, in terms of the private sector, this is a continuous investment program. The government has decided to continue with the development of the shipyard project, which we had proposed way back in 2010. And this project is going to cost some 500 million United States dollars or $3.2 billion. Just recently, the Honorable Minister of Finance gave the commitment that the new administration is going to honor these contracts that were entered by the previous administration. This would allow a country the opportunity to earn valuable foreign exchange, because a lot of questions are being asked, you know, with the increase in the ceiling for borrowing for the government. How are these monies going to be paid back? You know, and some of these loans are U.S. currency. So shipbuilding and repair is a good example that it's a net earner of foreign exchange.
Because you hear economists saying that all the time, that we aren't investing enough in revenue-generating projects. And shipbuilding and repair is a revenue-generating project, isn't it?
Yes, a U.S. revenue-generating project.
Which we desperately need at this point.
In fact, you know, most quotations, at least 85–90% of the quotations our stakeholders submit to foreign clients are in United States currency. That's to tell you the high earning potential that exists with the ship repairs here in Trinidad as we speak. And this could only grow.
And I suppose you must have a sort of a vision of where you'd like our potential to be in the next decade or so. And how long does it take to build a proper shipbuilding industry?
It takes a long time. Fortunately for our cluster, as I said, we have been in existence since 2007, and that's about 8 years now. So what we are seeing is the results of our diligent and hard effort behind the industry in terms of trying to make Trinidad and Tobago a strategic hub for the sector. You know, as a famous United States billionaire once said, Warren Buffett, no matter how great the talents or efforts, some things just take time. Mm-hmm. You can't produce a baby in 1 month, you know, by getting 9 women pregnant. You know, so, but we are ahead of the curve, you know, as important because, you know, I just heard last week that the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce mentioned that, you know, legislation should be passed with regards to diversification. That's just tell you how desperate things have started to become for the business sector locally, you know.
Well, I know, as you mentioned, that subsequent administrations have said we need to diversify, and I think this previous administration and the one before that also said that we need to diversify and identify certain areas. Shipbuilding and repair was in both of those. But yes, it's one of the ones that's actually caught on the best, isn't it? Yes,
we have been behind it, and by the way, we are a political organization, so whichever government is in power, we are still in there.
Right.
You know, we just present the facts of our industry, and luckily I have to say, you know, in the last 5 to 7 years, you know, the governments have listened to us and they have been quite open in receiving us. You know, just recently we had a stakeholder forum that was actually called by the Ministry of Trade and Industry. You know, we didn't have to go to them. You know, they called us and said, "Hey, we want to hear what could happen quickly," you know.
Because I guess they're looking and saying, okay, that area isn't doing too well. Let's look and see what areas are doing well and have potential to increase our foreign exchange
Yes,
income.
there are other areas that have been identified over the couple of years, such as, for example, the fashion industry, mm-hmm. creative industry, the film industry, you know, but, you know, you really have to ask what part are these associations, if they have any in existence, are playing to move forward their respective industries.
And do they have the foreign exchange potential that shipbuilding and repair does?
Yeah.
In terms of capacity building within area you're in. As we mentioned before, it is to some extent a series of baby steps you have to make, isn't it? Because you have to sort of develop your skill sets,
yes,
and so get larger and larger as you go along. So right now, I guess you'd be looking at a certain size of ship that could be built,
yes,
and tankers would not even be on the horizon for the time being.
Well, one of the things we have done in the past is that we have encouraged youngsters, nationals between the ages of 15 and 17 years of age, to be part of a mentorship program. And this mentorship program was a brainchild of the Ministry of Trade and Industry. They have a committee that manages the overall sector called the Maritime Industry Development Committee, which is headed by the president of Plipdeco, Ashley Taylor. So, they call us to participate and to help organize like shipyard visits. We have to start attracting young talent and make young people aware of our industry. So from time to time, I myself am called to give presentations at, say, Arthur Lockjack Graduate School of Business at the UTT Maritime campus in Chaguaramas, and I assist, students enroll at these two campuses, in their respective project submittals, and some of them have chosen our sector as part of their thesis. So we're happy to, to encourage young people, because that's what the future is about, providing sustainable jobs and employment opportunities for youngsters, and they're the ones that are going to feel the brunt and bear the responsibility of, paying back all these set of billions we are currently talking about.
Even though we rely so heavily on the energy industry, it actually isn't a huge net employer, is it? I think it's about 5% of the population is employed within the energy sector, like 100%. Shipbuilding is a much more a human capital driven business, isn't it, in terms of employment?
Yes. We like to look at the case of Singapore, where the maritime sector contributes some 7% of their gross domestic product. Right? Across there, they have some 51 shipyards.
51?
Yes, and the industry has been classified as a strategic industry, and they have 170,000 employees involved in the maritime sector. 170,000
in a small country like Singapore.
And Singapore, as you're probably aware, is 1/5 of the size of Trinidad and Tobago. They have a population of 5.3 million persons. So, we have quite a long way to reach Singapore's level.
Does the state of Singapore invest heavily in that area of their economy?
Yes, although the shipyards are private sector driven, and owned, operated, the government facilitates the private sector in whatever areas that may be required from time to time. It may involve giving grants, and concessions, which are very important for industry.
No, we give those for the energy industry. Do we give them for the maritime industry?
In terms of concessions?
Yeah.
Yes, we have some concessions that are available, which the Ministry of Trade, has put together, such as like, you can get what they call a free zone designation for your shipyard that will allow, a number of benefits, such as allowing you to bring in duty-free material as well as VAT-free as well.
Because a lot of the inputs are imported, aren't they?
Yes, correct. But the biggest component that is local in our ship repair industry is the labor. Mm-hmm. So we are looking at our national providing the labor, and we even looking so far as our largest neighbor, Venezuela. Later this month, we have a graduate from the Universidad Maritima del Caribe, which is a very large maritime university in Vargas State. And we have invited this graduate to come to our country at our cost, to try and develop linkages, because we see certain job descriptions and requirements. Our nationals may not be too willing in certain instances to take on these jobs. So Venezuela, based on their economic circumstances as present, we see it appropriate to try and establish linkages with the maritime sector.
because they have a large pool of labor, and obviously they're not doing too well at this point, so it's labor looking for a place to work.
Venezuela has 33 million persons. It's a huge labor pool, and it's so close to Port of Spain.
Well, as we can see, they've discovered that already.
Yes.
In terms of bureaucracy, I know it's been said that doing business in Trinidad and Tobago is not necessarily the easiest thing. The bureaucracy can be quite sort of daunting and a bit of a headache. Is that the case with the maritime industry as well, that getting things done efficiently is perhaps more of a chore than it should be?
Yes, well, the feedback we have been getting from some of our stakeholders who want to invest further in developing their existing shipyards and as well as new projects. For example, we have Sullivan Island project, which is a huge ship repair undertaking off the coast of Sealots, Port of Spain, is that when applications...
Are they building an island? Or is there an island?
Correct.
They're building an island?
Building an island, but again, you have to get the requisite approvals. And what we find is the stakeholders are complaining, they find it taking a little too long because, the government has these committees that sit now and again, more on the again side.
So you're sort of waiting for that again to come?
Yeah, so one of the things we have, informed the Ministry of Trade is that, these applications need to be fast-tracked based on the current global scenario as it revolves in the oil and gas sector. If we need to diversify, with full speed ahead.
I'm just curious now, why would you want to build an island for shipbuilding when we've got so much, I don't know, coastline that we're not even using, and we have Shipyards, for example?
Well, there's a number of reasons, The first thing is when you build an island, you create real estate. So this island is going to house not only a ship repair hub, but it's going to provide recreational use, office use, even a small marina as well is carded, And it's going to be cost effective, and because we're talking a huge operation here that is going to be globally competitive. Yes,
that's remarkable. I've never even thought about it. Would the fact that commodity prices are low now make it better for your industry, because things like steel, some of the basics that you require are actually at dirt cheap prices at this point?
Yes, the inputs prices have fallen because of the economic crisis the world faces. But we look at it, over the last 10 years, there was a large shipbuilding spree that went on, in many developed countries and developing, such as China. Right now is the #1 shipbuilder, and I mentioned this simply because
I think we were looking at them for ships at one point as well, weren't we?
Yes, the previous administration, acquired a multi-purpose vessel from China, and as I said, they're the #1 shipbuilding nation, and the project in Brea actually is to be built by a well-known Chinese company called China Harbour.
Even though we might be competing with them using that same development.
Yes, I would say that, but the Chinese are so willing to share their technology, which we have to grasp, at this stage. We need a big brother in this industry, as we say.
With some background in the industry, who knows what they're doing.
And they have grown pretty fast, their shipbuilding and ship repair sectors. Just last week, two of the largest shipping firms formed a merger, that is China Ocean Shipping and China Shipping, and combined they have a total fleet size of 950 vessels.
China's really transformed the world economy, hasn't it? I mean, I'm sure a few years ago you wouldn't have thought of the world's largest shipping firm as being Chinese. You'd be thinking Maersk or one of the big companies like that, but they've really changed the world economy.
Yes, well, one has to understand that, in the last couple of years, they were a huge manufacturing center in Asia, so therefore they needed all these large ships to transport finished manufactured goods, as well as commodities like steel, which we do get here in Trinidad. The ships come already to Chaguaramas and drop off steel products.
No, we're almost out of time. I want to ask you just in general, is the future bright for your industry at this point?
Yes, I certainly think so.
Because I want to hope that some part of the economy is looking bright.
Yes, all the dismal news you have been hearing and talks in the parliament about, how we're going to pay back this money that is proposed to be borrowed. You have to look at the ship repair sector as, a net earner of foreign exchange. It's already in that way as we exist. There's a huge backlog of ships to be repaired in our existing yards in the country. And we have to look at the employment possibilities that exist for personnel presently engaged in the declining energy sector. So they can easily come on board our industry quite comfortably.
Well, it's good to know that one part of the economy is looking a little bit bright. And I want to thank you, Wilfred Gannes, Chairman and CEO of Shipbuilding and Repair Development Company of Trinidad and Tobago, for being on the program. Keep us posted on your progress. Thank you very much indeed for being here. You've been watching One on One. Join us again tomorrow for another edition.